Oh, they're on.
All right. Nobody ever taught me how to do this. I saw one and I said, I bet I can work that out. So after much experimentation, what I came down to is a method where I can make, I use about a 6-inch block of, this is 8 quarters, so 1 3/4-ish, a little more thick. I can usually get 3 pieces out of one of these. I try to do it this way because normally I want to make a dozen at a time. Otherwise I would just, put a block on about that long and make one. So I'm going to start out by rounding this down. Then I'm going to basically do most of the outside shape, leaving a thick spot where I'm going to part it off. Once I get the outside shape done, I'll drill it out and then hollow it. And then we'll move on to doing the spindle part. It's kind of I would call it a semi-advanced project. It's not really a beginner thing, but I wouldn't say you have to be an advanced turner to do this. Some of the tools, there's a million different hollowing things out there. This is one I just made out of an old skew chisel.
That is right done somewhere.
Okay, can you get a look at it there?
That'll work.
This was just a straight skew chisel, and I just took it to the grinder, took some meat out there, and then made myself a little round over. I also make hollowing tools out of Allen wrenches for when I need to get further over. But for these things, I don't really need to go too deep off to the side. So you'll see how that goes. I guess I really ought to just start turning. And as he said, if you have any questions, holler, because I'll be looking here, I won't see you. This is kiln-dried maple.
Thank you.
The hard stuff. I get it at Owl Hardwoods. And okay, we're just there. I'm not going to round down the whole thing because I'd rather keep some of the support there, get less vibration that way. Now, I'm using this is a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. I use this for the more roughing out kind of part of it because it's a little more solid. I could take a bigger bite than I can with my spindle gouge. And basically all I'm doing is making a bead here. And one of the key things you want to remember is to your last cuts, you want to make them just as fine as you can. And it's sometimes easier to come around like that. Alrighty, I'm going to come back here. And one of the things I want to do, whoops, I left this in here. I've got a mark on my drill bit here that's just about 1 3/4 inches. So I want to line up where that is, and I'll just make a little nick there. That kind of shows me where I want to be. And now I'm going to that was a bit of a mistake there.
Ambidextrous also.
In my opinion, this is one of the key things you want to learn if you're going to do spindle turning, is to be able to work with both hands or from both sides. Now I've got some like facets to my curves here, and I found out over time that it's a lot more efficient to just round them off with your skew chisel in scraper mode. Because I could sit here all day trying to make a curve that smooth with my spindle gouge and never get it. And that's about as far over as I want to go. Oh, we can get better than that though.
Any burr on that skew?
If there is, it's barely detectable.
Other than what came out.
I use a 400 grit CBN wheel on my grinder at home. So it gives me a pretty clean, there's almost undetectable burrs. Alright, so we're going to want to slow that down a good bit. There we go. I'm going to bring that up. I want to bring it up as close as I can without touching, because the further out you get with your quill, the more likely you are to get some wobble in there. So, I think I want to be in the neighborhood of 800 or 900 RPM. The numbers work on my lathe.
They used to. Hey, what size hole?
I'm not sure. It's the one my finger fits in.
For what?
So I can tell how thick it is.
With a gouge.
So I'm just going to go down to my mark, and I'm going a little faster than I should have. I'm kind of heating up here. Right about there. I think it's
3/4.
oh, it's definitely not 3/4.
You got a skinny.
It's either a 1/2 inch or whatever the next size, like 5/8.
9/16.
Could be a 9/16. If somebody wants to measure, you're welcome to. Actually, I don't want that in there. I want you way out of the way.
3/6.
Okay. And we should also, when it comes to sandpaper, I don't go cheap. This 3M Pro Grade Cubitron 2. It doesn't really last any longer than the mid-grade stuff, but it's a heck of a lot better than the cheap stuff.
And it's purple.
I don't care about the color, but it's consistent. That's what I like about it, is that I have bought sandpapers that as you go across like that, you'll get scratches here but not here because there's different sizes of grit. 3M is very good about consistent grit sizes. Yeah, that white stuff they sell that comes in like circles, that stuff's junk. So I'm using 320 to take off the facets that I had left, and a little 400 to take out the lines from that. And I think if you zoom in on this, you'll see that that is going to be a pretty acceptable finish for whatever you want to put on it. Normally I just color these with a Sharpie marker or leave them natural if I have nice wood, and then give them a clear coat over that. I didn't bring my Sharpie markers. I'm always going to forget something. Next step here is to go to the hollowing. And we want to set the height so this is right at the center line. And boy, I got that really good, didn't I? Yeah, first try. I like that. I want a good bit more speed here. I want to get up 1750, 18, 1900 in that range somewhere. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try and establish a thickness of just a little over 1/8 of an inch. And once I've got that marked, then I'm going to start arcing in. So each cut is just arcing across like that. And once I get down near the thickness at the widest part, then I'm going to come back and smooth out that curve. Now there's a part of this I'm going by feel. When I get down to the bottom in here, where my drill bit bottomed out, I've still got a good more than 1/4 inch to go, but I'm gonna be going right up against where the bit bottomed out, and that's where I'm gonna stop hollowing. And then when I'm done hollowing, I'll come back and drill a little bit more just before I part it off, and that'll give me the thickness I want at the bottom too. Okay, I'm just about there, so now I want to stop. That feels like a pretty good thickness. Let me knock this off of here and shake out my chips and all so that I can really...
You need air?
That'd be one way. I always just take this thing off. But the
So you want to start that
brake
up?
here doesn't seem to be working too much.
Hit it, Bob.
So when I'm working at home, I have my dust collector right there, and I just right into the dust collector. I don't think I need to do any more. So. Now, check my depth again to make sure I'm where I think I am. I'm pretty close there. So I'll take my parting tool. Oops, reverse. This needs to be a bit lower for this part. And that's just a little bit bigger than the drill bit now. So this is where I'll get out. Just a little bit. This is the part where I say, do as I say, not as I do. Don't ever adjust your tool rest with the lathe running. It's not really a...
You're not saving any time.
Yeah, well...
Not when you factor in the cleanup.
When you factor in, the real problem comes is if you happen to be working near the chuck. You know, if I'm way over here and this thing's turning 2,000 RPM and I adjust this and it hits these jaws, I could damage my tool rest, I could damage my chuck. If you damage the chuck, then this thing can come flying out. I'm not really scared of this as long as the chuck is in good condition. This thing is in here solid. But if it was to let go, it's gonna hurt, and I hate hurt. So, again, as I say, this is one of those cases like my mother always told me, do as I say, not as I do. So, this is another, I need to go left-handed here. Bring my bevel up, rub the bevel, and then roll it until I'm cutting.
Somebody getting it.
Did you have some other method for locking this?
Other than pushing the button,
Yeah,
no.
because the lock doesn't seem to be working too well.
Doesn't catch either. Yeah, we stick a pin
Catches
in
and
the,
then,
put an Allen in the index.
oh, you got it?
Yeah. Time to move the other lathe up here maybe, huh?
Reverse.
I don't know what John Jordan would say.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. See if I can part this one off without blowing it up. A little more room here, which might have been part of my problem before. I was proud of myself a little bit. See where we're at. Right there. Huh. Looks like I did not drill this one as deep as I thought. But that's okay. Go ahead and finish. Slow you down a good bit.
Homemade parting tool.
Yep, piece of 1-inch bandsaw blade. But, I forget who it was. Somebody
Make
brought
a
it.
lot of those.
Okay. So now I'm actually a little bit smaller than my drill bit there. And I think I need to come in that way a little bit more. I will eventually. But I don't want to use the drill bit for a depth gauge because it's sharp and it'll...
I meant to actually just drill through. You've already brought the neck down smaller.
If I drill through, when I go to part it off, I don't know how thick I'm going to be at the bottom. I think it'll be easier to see what I'm talking about once I part it off. But if I'm doing this right, I should have about the same thickness at the top and at the bottom. work better. Twist that up just a little bit. One part of turning is, you know, learning how to deal with when you make a mistake, how to improvise. So, go ahead and bring this back up now. Okay, and now, as I do this, as I cut in here now, I'm going to cut right through. See what happened there?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about doing.
Right. Now, what happened was, though, is that I kind of cut it off, and what I have to do now, where did it go? I wanted to show that little ring that I cut out when I do that, but I lost it. That's okay though.
You say you're looking for a little ring?
Just a little bitty ring of wood there.
Yeah, here it is. Don't ask me how I can see that from where I'm sitting.
That's amazing. But you can see that's kind of the key to the thing. And actually I'm a little thicker here than I wanted to be. See how much I took out. There we go. And if you want to pass that around so you can see what a successful one looks like. We're done with this. And we're done with this chuck. When I'm doing this at home, normally I only use this smaller chuck, and I'll do like a dozen bulbs and then switch chuck jaws. Here, this stuff was, I think this was 5/4 I started with, and then I ripped it down a little bit. Once again, my method for getting it straight is to just look at the ways and look at the end. And this is the part where I use the tail saw. Going for a bit more speed now because I'm at a smaller diameter. The way I'm holding this like this, with my hand up like this, I developed because I do a lot of turning without these. Don't do it for demo, but at home, it's another case of do as I say. Wear your safety glasses. But by holding it like this, you'll see that my hand makes a chip deflector. Yeah, exactly. I can't help it. My grandmother raised me to be honest. Can't help it.
forgot one other point.
She wasn't perfect either. That's about as far as I want to go with the roughing. Now I do my spindle gouge. This is pretty close to a copy of the Cindy Drozda shape. She actually does it a little longer, I think a little finer point, but this works actually pretty good. Other thing is, once we get that rough down, we really don't need this anymore, because we are going to be taking very light cuts for the most part from now on. Get into it. Deeper back there. I got to get rid of that little dimple from the point of that. That's pretty good. What I'm after here is just a little kind of a flame shape.
Hey, what's the length of that?
I'm sorry,
What's the length?
the length, I'm starting with just a hair under 6 inches total. But it really doesn't matter because, you know, I don't measure any of this. If one of my ornaments comes out a ½ inch shorter than all the rest, so what? Part of my philosophy of turning, I never try to make two things identical. Now these spindles, I've been doing them for a while, so they come out so they can be kind of hard to tell any one from another. But for the most part, I'm really not trying to make any two alike, so I don't care if it's 5 3/4 or 6 inches. I find that my customers like to have a range to choose from. And about the only thing that remains the same is the elements. I've got this little bead that's a kind of a flame shape, and then I'm going to have about 1 1/4 to 1.5 inches of what I think is as a trumpet shape. You'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to have a bead pretty close to the shape of the bulb, another shorter, fatter trumpet thing, and then, well, sometimes I just improvise all the way through it. That's about the heaviest cut I ever want to take when I'm doing this spindle work. Oops.
How long would it take to do?
When I'm really on a roll, I can finish a complete ornament probably in about 30 minutes. But like I said, I'll do, you know, 10 or 12 of the bulbs and then do the spindles. I'm being a little more careful than I would be at home here because I've already screwed up once. Don't really want to.
That's all right, Bob does well. We're used to that.
Oh, Ken, don't do that.
I think it was a kit.
Yeah, I keep doing that, don't I?
That's a Bob thing. Too much coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
Too much Pepsi.
I had a Pepsi a while ago, though. That might be it. I don't know why I'm having this trouble.
It's those critics we got in the audience. I think it's Bob to a plumber.
Yeah, I'm almost using the gouge like a skew chisel at this point, and that's why I keep catching. If I had a much narrower one, I probably could. And once you get to a thickness like this, you really want to be taking some light cuts. That's pretty good. I don't want to go back there anymore. I think I will try and see if I can get away with this.
Notice the finger wrapped around the other side.
Yeah, I'm supporting my spindle. And you'll know if you're pushing too hard when you're doing this because your finger will get very hot very quickly. There. And we'll call that long enough. A little bump there, let's try to do it. That's good. Okay, at this point, I should only need my 400 grit at this point. Get under there and still supporting this because I don't want to snap it off. And that should be all. That should get a little roughness there though. I usually like to round this off a little bit. I don't want this to be sharp where it flares there. Okay. See, I remembered. For once. Alright, I think I'm going to take a little more off with this, just to speed things up a bit. So the more I take off with this, the less support I have, so I don't want to go, you know, I don't want to thin it all the way down to where I'm going to end up until I get to that part of it. But that's where I want my next bead to be, right about there. So now I'm going to But it's not really visible, so I guess I'm okay. I'll fix that with the sandpaper. And that's it. So you want it, when you're doing spindle turning, I'm working from the tailstock towards the headstock. Once I get a bit done here, I never ever want to go back out there because that's very weak.
Commercial.
I just realized what it is that makes me keep doing that. I keep running into this. Yeah, I can fix it. Okay, that's pretty good. Happy with that. I'm going to start my second trumpet shape here. That is a great camera angle. Nobody else ever does that. Nobody ever demoed for it.
If the wind doesn't blow. Spring wind.
Okay, it looks like a pretty good thickness there. Okay, once again, with that. Round that off a little bit to smooth it down. And once again, you can make a little more clearance there. seem to be a little bit shaky today, so I think I can get a little more smooth this way. That's good. I'm cheating and use the 320, otherwise known as shaping paper. Alrighty, we're going to have one more little element here. This one will take out a bit more meat here. In front, well, I'm not real happy with that. Don't seem to be really getting down to where I want to here. Guess that's going to have to do. That's a little thick there, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it because I'm kind of at that point. Yeah. Down a little bit. This is where my other parting tool comes in handy. I'm going to come pretty darn close to the jaws here. And let's see where we are. Calipers. One last check here to make sure I got them set right. It's a little tight. Let's see how far do I got to go. Quite a ways. Now, and that's pretty much the spindle. Get in here and get a little clean up in there. And I think that's... I would normally get a little smoother in here, take a little more time and clean it up a bit, but for the most part I think we're good. I only need to leave about as much there as the thickness of my bulb, so. Okay, now, if I got this right, this will slip right into that bulb.
Here.
Bottom and, nope, I had my calipers set a little bit too big. The way I fix that usually is just a couple of minutes of doing this. And in fact, I would normally do this with like 150 grit because it'll go a lot faster. But that keeps the hole nice and round when I do that. Wow, so close. Remind me to set those calipers just a little tighter. So close. Normally doesn't take this long.
You want rougher sandpaper?
We're almost there.
You have them right there. Give them 150. 120, 150?
I got a friend who sands floors. He occasionally uses 16
150.
grit. It takes a really messed up floor for him to get the 16 grit out.
That one's 100.
There, oh, so close. It's 100 grit?
That's 100.
He's showing up tomorrow at 7:30. Huh? Okay. Get him up.
Almost.
Jackknife next. One thing good about video, you can edit it.
Yep. Get this all out of it. Okay, there we go.
Never see it.
And that's how that's supposed to fit. Okay. Now, before I move on, I'm going to make sure I've got this to the correct size. Which is definitely going to be a little bit smaller than I had it. Can't use this trick to get the other one because, well, this is in the middle of a little more. Yeah, there we go.
Paper rub.
Yep. It makes a beautiful fit when you do that. Now, we're going to take this out of here and spin it around. And now I'm remembering what's the other tool I forgot to bring. Is my 1/8 of an inch drill bit that I drill in this way so that I can put a piece of, I usually use just a little length of fishing line and glue it into that hole. And then jam it in there with a piece of toothpick.
We got an 1/8 inch drill bit back there.
A little pin right in front of you.
I don't see any drill bits in
I
there.
don't see a drill bit in there. They'll find it.
Done with you.
That do you?
That's close enough. Once again, it doesn't really matter whether you do 1/8 inch, a little less than 1/8 of an inch, as long as you can get some thread, or sometimes I use ribbon. And usually I will use a centering bit, what do they call it, center drill for metal work blades, to start it. Pardon me? A drill? No, whatever. Yeah, that gets me started, and that makes sure that this is right on center, but we're doing good here. So I want to go maybe a little over 1/2 inch deep, will be plenty.
Are you talking about this bits that look like a, that you mix your add some and that have a little, I'll try it.
Are you talking about stepped bits?
No, I'll try it.
You go ahead and
The rest of it looks like it's.
you get this out of the way. That should be all I'm going to need at this point.
I do. Yeah. Now it might be back. Put it in the back, put the wire in the background.
Now this is the tricky part that gets scary for some folks, because I'm going to come right down next to my jaws here. But a steady hand will allow you to get right there. Okay, that looks pretty good. And once again, now we're back to just simple spindle turning. There we go. And I'm going to get thicker, but I want to finish the top before I do. And be careful not to get too thin, because I don't want to get close to the hole that I just drilled. So I'm just trying to take off those little facets that I left behind. That looks good. And we'll go back to this one. And once again, because I'm a little bit on the lazy side, rather than try and dress that up perfectly with my chisel, I'm just going to use the old shaping paper. That's looking pretty thick. I think I need to go thinner there. That's better. Yeah, that's better. See if I can get this just right. All right. Now, and now here's the part that scares people. And that's that. And that should be just about the whole deal. Thinking I made this a little wider up top than I normally do, but I think it'll work out okay. Yep, there it is. And there you have it. So as I said, when I want to add some color to it, while the bulb is still, before I even part the bulb off, I'll just take a couple of Sharpie markers in bright colors with the lathe. Important, if you're coloring things with Sharpie markers on the lathe, keep your spindle speed under 600 RPM, preferably down around 350, 400 if you can get your lathe that slow, because the fiber tip is some kind of plastic, and at about 250 degrees it melts. And Sharpie markers are not terribly expensive, but after you've melted 5 or 6 tips, you start to thinking they're expensive. Beyond that, that's about the deal, folks.